Are we live?
We're live.
We're live.
We're live and we're in.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first live edition of Out of the Rut podcast. It's brought to you by the Rutkowski Podcast Network. The Rutkowski Potty. I'm a dad. The Rutkowski Podcast Network, LLC. And this episode is brought to you by Defender Gear, custom apparel. Isn't that right, Joe?
It is.
You like Defender Gear?
Oh, yeah.
You're wearing it right now.
I'm wearing it.
All right. Defender Gear is the best American apparel brand out there. Click the link in the description to receive 15% off your first order. All you got to do is register with your email address and get 15% off your first order. That's all you got to do. You get quality apparel, t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, hoodies, all that good stuff. If you're a commie, you probably don't like it. If you're an American, you probably will. Check it out. So we are going to be joined very shortly here by our soon-to-be friend, Dr. Denzel Jines, and we're going to get him on here in just 1 second. So,
bear with us. This is our first time going live. I wonder if I can just repeat this. A little background music.
yeah, there we go.
Nice.
Bring him up.
Yeah, we got 2 people live right now. We were up to 4 for a second.
Wow. Are we on YouTube as well?
Yes, sir.
All
YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Everyone's on Facebook right now on your personal page.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Look at that. It's so weird. I'm looking at YouTube, seeing myself and about.
Actually, do you want to check the volume? Make sure that volume's all good, because that's the only concern that I have as far as
Oh, sure. Go ahead and call him. Get him in.
what was his number?
Oh, we're gonna have
Okay.
Volume's low. Volume's way low on the live feed.
Way low?
Yeah, very low.
Okay.
Whatever we need to do to crank that up.
Hello?
Hello, this is Dr. Jines. I'm unavailable right now. Please leave it.
That was a good volume test.
All right,
Volume check,
good volume
check. Okay. Microphone. That's why. Okay, try. Oh, that's way loud. This is a balancing act. Check, check, check. Check, check. Check 1, 2. Levels. This should be closer to right. Actually, you talk for a second too.
Check 1 2. Volume is on. Checking volume.
Okay, that
I'm
should
gonna
be
look
good.
at the YouTube real quick and just see how it's sounding on there.
Welcome back to our 4 people on Facebook.
Hey guys, you guys are the best. Thanks for tuning in. This is legit.
We'll have Dr. Giles on with us shortly. We're just waiting to connect.
Dr.
time.
Jines.
Jines.
And I hope I'm
Just-
pronouncing that correctly.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Very much. Volume's much better. Volume's
Awesome.
much better.
Yeah, I just had a setting wrong on the input
That's
for everything. So we're solid. And you're recording on here. Good job.
Yep. Huge shout out to Joe, by the way. This would not have happened if it wasn't for your big old brain over there. I just
tried.
can't thank you enough for everything that you've done for the show, for our awesome listeners out there, the lives that we're changing by talking into tin cans. It's awesome.
Hopefully. That's the goal.
Very awesome. We'll put this right there. I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, baby, we're on TV right now. How cool is that? That's very cool. There's a camera right there. Right there. See the camera? Yeah, we're on TV right now. Sure. For just a second. We're waiting for Dr. Denzel to come on.
He's our guest tonight.
Oh, it's not letting me share it. On my page, no. It's probably because they knew that there was a workaround to their making you want to pay for it, so they restricted sharing.
That makes sense.
Got 3 people tuning in. Wow. All right, Claire is on
And
TV.
anyone tuning in, the chat, we have a live update chat, so feel free to put some comments in and we can interact with you guys live. So
Yeah. Just for a little bit, and then you're going to have to run upstairs once we get started, okay?
you gotta take Maggie too.
Yes, and get Magerton out of here.
Why?
Why? Because we're on TV.
Why does it need to be perfect?
Because Joe is a perfectionist. He is he's what we call a melancholy type personality.
What?
Isn't that right? Or are you a phlegmatic?
I'm a phlegmatic melancholy.
Okay. Well,
Same difference. Close enough.
all right. So
There's enough of it in there
go
to make
ahead
a
and run
difference.
upstairs and bring Maggie with you, okay? I love you.
But that was just so. That was just so another.
I know, but we're about to get started here.
When? Right?
Like right now.
What's he gonna call me?
Yeah. I texted him and told him to just call you when he gets it. Maybe we'll just have to listen to the song for an hour until he gets it.
Yeah. An hour loop.
All right. I need to bug Jared and get him to give me some more. He needs to give me some loop music that I can loop. Are you Googling royalty-free music?
No. I already have that if I need it.
Oh yeah. Can we use LTD music?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
It's royalty free. So, I have other royalty free music too.
Okay. All right. Well, my NFL picks were pretty good this weekend. 3-1-1.
Nice.
I would have been 4-1 if the Saints didn't backdoor me on that Chiefs game. Oh, I was so irritated about that.
I have to get used to this mic again. Been so used to the other one.
Yeah.
Hey, there we go.
All right.
Hello.
Hi, Justin.
Denzel, how you doing, brother?
Hey, dude.
Awesome.
Up.
Sorry, say that
And-
again. I couldn't hear you.
I was trying to get the Zoom up and running.
Oh, okay. You know what? We decided that the everything is just as fine with you on the phone, so I think we're just gonna roll with this if that's okay with you.
Cool. Yeah,
right.
that's fine.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I can't thank you enough. I don't know if we've barely talked, but I don't know if you've made the connection of how I heard about you. Did Richard tell you about that?
No.
Okay. So Richard Maxwell's my uncle. You may know him.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know him pretty well.
Pretty
Good
well.
guy.
Yeah, he is. He's my mom's brother, and my mom read your book and went back a couple months ago when I was first getting this podcast off the ground. She was like, "You have to interview this Denzel guy," and I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And then she sent me your book, and I read your book, and it was amazing. And then as you know, this podcast has grown. I figured out how to do things remotely, and here we are. So welcome aboard.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, Richard is quite a guy. I mean, that's one of those unsung heroes that, he's been there, done that. We went fishing one time because, oh my gosh, the last time I was here in this body of water, it was to get a body. And people have no idea, what police officers see on a daily basis. And for him as a homicide detective, he just, he saw the absolute worst of human nature, and how that didn't scar him, to where, he's a great guy, fun to be around and all that. And, but that he bears some scars that are pretty tough.
Absolutely. He's one of the nicest human beings on the face of the planet. And almost a little soft-spoken at times. And then you see the tattoos and the leather from the biker stuff, and you're like, all right, he's pretty tough too.
Well, he's the founder of one of the second largest law enforcement motorcycle club in the United States. And, they founded it right down there in outlaw country, and, developed a respectful relationship with all the outlaws. And, it is what it is. He and the other founders are some pretty tough hombres.
Yeah.
Were and are, so, nothing but respect for them, and for the fact that they were able to create something out of nothing that has grown to a point where 1,400 members and chapters, and 47 chapters, and all the way across the United States. And it's pretty incredible, and a great bunch of people to be around.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're law enforcement heavy, and they're weighted towards some clubs, that are law enforcement actually have maybe a 50-50 ratio or less as far as active law enforcement. And our club is the opposite. It's pretty much all law enforcement with, a good number. We have a percentage of veterans that had law enforcement backgrounds as well. And, it's one of those things. If you like motorcycles, you like having fun, and you like to share it, and it's kind of one of those things where you can share it with people that have a similar background, life experiences, and things like that. So it makes it even more fun.
Absolutely.
Because you can relate.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, one thing about your book that I was having a tough time with, I was hoping you could clear this up for me. There should be a beer company somewhere out there to get you to run their marketing campaign as the most interesting man in the world, because you've literally done all of these amazing, like any one of these things that you've done to the highest level, like you have, one person would call one of those things like a life well lived. You've got like 7 of them. So the one thing I was having a tough time with is your timeline. So what was your, graduating high school, going into college, were you a doctor first? Were you a police officer first? How did that kind of all come about?
I was in college, and, my background was going to be psychology, and in a biology chemistry background. I was going to go into dental school, and I had the opportunity to join a police department part-time, go through the training, which allowed me then to pay for school.
Oh, excellent.
And so then I went to dental school, and I was the only person at Washington University School of Dental Medicine that was actually working outside of school. It was, there were a few people that did some weekend jobs and things like that, but to actually be working for a short time, my first and second years with police departments was, it helped pay for things, but it was also so stressful. The amount
absolutely.
of the amount of time that's required for a professional graduate school is unbelievable. So I had a lot of sleepless time, and I left there and did a 1-year internship, advanced clinical rotation program in the Navy, and was done with law enforcement. And then I served in the Navy, served on the U.S. Theodore Roosevelt. I was a plank owner on her.
Nice.
And went through her first 3 years in her first Mediterranean cruise. and got out, and then did my residency at the University of Virginia, and then started in private practice in dentistry, and worked at the University, St. Louis University, and then American International School of Medicine for a medical degree. I rotated here in St. Louis, and the whole time I was maintaining a private practice in dentistry that was geared towards it's oral medicine.
Mm-hmm.
I was seeing patients that were so critically ill medically that they would not make a good candidate as a patient in a normal dental setting, and so they're best served in a hospital, or they would require sedation, IV sedation, general anesthesia, and they were so brittle, whether they were diabetic or cancer patients or HIV patients. And I ended up in St. Louis at the time. I was about the only person to see him, but one of the only people that had the advanced medical training. And so before long, I had about 2,000 HIV patients from all around this part of the country.
Holy smokes.
And so I did, lots and lots of surgery and lots of dentistry, and had a good time. And in 93, a friend of mine, the guy's best man at my wedding, Joe Palfrey, Army trained sniper, just a great guy. Just a super duper, first chemical engineer. And then he worked for the pipe fitters union in Southern Illinois. And he and I did everything together. We rode motorcycles, we, martial arts, and thought, what? Wouldn't it be neat to be police officers, And so we contacted Mike Donovan, who's the chief of the Lebanon Police Department, and he agreed to sign us on. We went to the academy, and from there just worked part-time, Thursday nights, Fridays, Saturdays, sometimes Sundays, and just worked the night shift in town, and did that for a number of years. And I worked there, St. Clair County, and East Carondelet, Illinois. And after 23 years of that, I finally, the ALS caught up with me, and I couldn't fake running or helping out. And I didn't want to be a detriment, or at least, an anchor on somebody and a handicap. So, to another officer and endanger them. So in 2016, I retired.
Okay, awesome. Let's that's a lot to chew on. I have a couple questions that popped up. By the way,
okay.
If you hear a second voice on the line, I do a terrible job of this, but I need to introduce my producer, Joe Trenshaw, who's also on the line here.
Hi, Joe.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Denzel.
So yeah, as you were rolling, and I was thinking, I was like, I didn't tell him that Joe was here too. Yeah. So if you heard a second voice, it wasn't a ghost. You weren't hearing things. So
okay, well, it's good to have a Joe around. I've got my Joe around all the time.
Yeah, we need him around here, otherwise the show wouldn't happen. So
okay.
So you said you had at one point 2,000 HIV patients. Was there again, this is a little bit before my time, but was there a stigma around that time where doctors and dentists weren't willing to work on
horrible.
HIV patients?
It was absolutely horrible in medicine and dentistry. There are people who were so afraid. And there was a case where Kimberly Bergalis was the first HIV patient that contracted it from a healthcare provider.
Oh, wow.
And that was a Florida dentist. And there was a tremendous stigma. Everybody was afraid. And without getting into the details of that case, it looked like he possibly, could have done that intentionally. But the outshoot of that was that the public and healthcare providers themselves were just afraid. And so when I moved to St. Louis, it was, I was giving lectures to other dentists and physicians on the common dental maladies that are occurring with HIV patients, the opportunistic infections, how to handle it. And there was just a reluctance for people to even want to know about it. I'll just send them to you. And without advertising, without ever advertising, the practice just grew that way. I was involved with several of the infectious disease docs here in St. Louis, and they were all just super welcoming. They said, "Oh, we've got somebody who can see these patients," and within probably 6 months of moving to St. Louis, I was booked and so busy all the time.
Word got around.
Yeah, and we were doing, we were using all the universal precautions, the autoclaving and the sterilization that we were using at the hospital. We just incorporated that into the dental practice and thought, well, everybody that's, worried about this, they shouldn't be. If you're actually practicing sterilization and universal precautions, that shouldn't be a hindrance to seeing any patients, but it remains so for a couple of decades. It finally, it's now I think people realize they're seeing patients and not even knowing that they are, and there's other things that they got to worry about more, like hepatitis C and, so.
Right. What made you different?
What now?
What made you different from a lot of the other docs and dentists that weren't willing to take HIV patients back then?
Oh, I just an understanding of the science, a willingness to see people that I'd known. I had several friends that were in the gay community, and it was hitting close to home. I was seeing people that I knew that were getting sick and passing, and this is before any of the meds. Before AZT. This is, you had a 18 to 24 month lifespan.
Yeah. When
you were first infected, and it was horrible. And everybody deserves to be cared for.
Yeah.
So maybe it was that personal, seeing it up close early on that just made it something I was not gonna not see someone. I just couldn't do that.
Absolutely. So you had a heart for your patients.
Same with all the other infectious disease docs that were, up to their elbows in it, that were working without knowing. Everybody was trying to figure out what caused it and what we, how to prevent it and then how to treat it. And so there were a lot of other people that were, in there. I just happened to be one of the few early on here in the St. Louis area. But the coasts were a little farther advanced, but they had, they had a larger patient population there at the time, and so we just caught up.
Yeah, I Joe, you got anything so far?
I'm just here listening. This is an incredible story.
Cool. So, I didn't give Joe your book, so he's at a deficit right now. So I'll probably do most of the question asking. But
well, people ask, they'll go, well, how did you do this, or how could you have done X, Y, or Z? Or, I've had people that were incredulous, like, oh, he can't, that's impossible. And it's like, well, I was lucky. I had a dad that was encouraging, very strict, old world disciplinarian type. But at the same time, he taught us how to critically think and, how to have that internal dialogue within ourselves. There's only so many major decisions a human being ever makes, especially here in the freedom of America. Who do you serve with your life? Who are you going to spend it with? What are you going to do with it? What are your goals? And then every time you make those major decisions, you also got minor decisions that occur every single day. Do I hang around with losers?
Oh,
well,
that's a big one.
Show me your friends.
Yeah.
I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
Do I
that's a big
smoke
one
dope?
Right
there. Should I take these drugs? Well, I might not do as well in school then, and then I can't get to the big goal.
Yeah.
So I had those dialogues kind of programmed. My brothers are the same way. I've got one that's a lawyer and the other one's a physician, and we would have those dialogues in our own heads. We actually talked about it before. Do you ever ask yourself the questions that Dad? Yeah. Same. And it's if you do that, if you teach a kid how to think about 4 years, 10 years, 20 years, where do you want to be? How are you going to then get there? It's a lot easier in their life than, muddling through and then realizing, I haven't made any plans. And so I'm still here stuck, in the starting blocks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the big difference, I think, is that some people don't think they can. And instead of thinking about, well, how can I get that? It's like we weren't born rich, but I wanted to fly planes. I knew World War II pilots.
Yeah.
People that I grew up with that were, former pilots back in the 40s. Now it's in the 60s and 70s when I was a kid. I want to be like, I want to fly a plane like that.
Yeah.
Figure out a way.
And then you did.
I had guys that were martial artists and boxers. I had an uncle, Galen Stone, who, fought the European heavyweight champ. And I wanted to learn how to, defend myself. My dad had certain goals before he would say, "You're a man." You're going to grow up. He's, well, you might have hit that age, but can you speak a second language? Can you use a map, without this fancy technology? Can you ride a motorcycle as a life-saving tool? Maybe that might be the only means of getting away from the tsunami wave that's coming, and you see one sitting there, but you don't know how to ride it. How about a plane? Can you fly a plane? Can you defend your principles with valid facts, with reasoning, with, and if necessary, can you defend your principles with your hands?
Yeah.
And
well, I think on that one, up until you said, can you defend your principles with facts? I think I was like 1 for 9. So I got some work to do.
Well, I mean, don't judge anybody. I mean, this is the way I do things. It's not how everybody should or what's right for other people. It's just, for me, this is what works.
Well, and Dr. Denzel, I mean, this is why I like to talk to people like you, is because if I can share experiences with somebody who's further down the road from me, who's done things leaps and bounds above things that I thought I was capable of doing, I think I'll become a better person for having those conversations. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm doing this.
Yeah, you can learn stuff from old people like you.
Believe it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I learn a lot from the younger guys all the time.
Yeah.
It's like I thought I was going to get through life and not have to worry about these computers and stuff. But
yeah, you almost got a lesson in Zoom tonight, but we didn't have to go there. So
yeah, I loaded the app up, and that was as far as I got.
It's a good start.
This stuff is so much. I mean, it's unreal. I mean, when I started with computers, basic Fortran, COBOL language, cards that you had to punch in a mainframe. And
now you're speaking my language.
Yeah, that was the scary stuff for me. The tech, I laughed. I said, "We got an IT guy at the office for a reason."
And I have a Joe for a reason.
Yeah.
So. All right. So a line from your book, chapter 32, from your random thoughts. You're pretty big into the whole personal responsibility thing. There's a quote in here. We have to know our right to life doesn't come from a government. With rights come responsibilities, and each individual is responsible for maintaining their own rights. So can you kind of talk a little bit for a sec about, like, one thing that just bugs the hell out of me is when people want to talk about their rights before they talk about their responsibilities. And granted, our rights are incredibly important. But
okay, well,
go ahead.
Where do your rights come from?
My personal belief is that our rights come from God, not government. That's my personal belief.
Exactly.
Exactly.
The founding fathers wrote that specifically in there because they wanted you to know that they're inalienable. They come from the Creator. They come from something other than other people, from man, from man-made government. And if you understand that, you know that you have then responsibilities to maintain those rights, because you will have people that want to take them away.
Mm-hmm.
They've wanted to take them away since we started this nation. They've done things like, well, that gets into a whole what's going on with the progressive movement that's gone on for the last 100 years.
Yep.
Started with Wilson, Woodrow Wilson on. You've got people that truly want to alienate us from those rights.
Yeah.
You can look at the Naked Communist, and when it was included in the Library of Congress, the congressional record back in the early 60s, I think about 63, they said what they were going to do. The enemies of freedom have written it all out.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at Saul Alinsky's book, you look at any
Rules
of that
for
stuff,
Radicals.
Rules for Radicals.
Yep.
They will show you this is what we're going to do.
Yep.
We're going to get God out of the picture, and then we can start and we'll peel them away. We're going to dumb down
Absolutely
every kid with an educational system that throws in. The latest thing was the crazy math. And now
Common
I'm
Core.
drawing a blank on what they called this new
Common Core, I believe, is what they're
Common
referring.
Core.
Yep.
And that all it did is dumb down and slow down people in the ability to learn.
Mm.
And if I can take your history and take it away from you, I can guarantee you won't have a future.
Statues being torn
that's what they've done.
down, museums being burned, Portland's on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's all the result of a 100-year march towards separating us from the founding principles of this nation.
Yep.
A lot of people don't get that. They don't get it's ask me a specific question. Whether it's the 1619
Project. Oh
the
God.
stuff that they're doing today.
Oh.
To say that this country was founded in hatred and in slavery, it goes against reality.
Yep.
And they want you to not believe your lying
sure.
eyes, just believe our narratives.
Yeah, and if you
we're gonna
want,
take
if you
your
want to
freedom.
go and research that for yourself, if you're tuning in, go and do a little bit of research on Nicole Hannah-Jones, who is the founder of the 1619 Project, and just take a look at what her motives and political ideologies and stuff like that. It's not.
It's pure Marxism.
It is. Same, yeah, and again, I've been incredibly hard on. I've been very honest about the Black Lives Matter movement. I say that the Black Lives Matter as a statement is correct, but the movement itself and the organization itself, which turns out that it's a pretty profitable little merchandise company now. It's they're not doing this stuff for free.
It's made a lot of money for some people.
For sure,
it's been funded by people that hate this nation.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And they don't want to believe that, and they want to continue to push the victimization mindset that, oh, woe is me, I can't do it without somebody else's help.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're getting a little off in the weeds right now. Let's bring it back a little bit. I love it. Okay. We could totally go down that rabbit hole. So, and then another quote on that topic in your book, George Washington once said, "All government is evil, necessary, and should be kept small, but evil." I don't see a whole lot of small government these days. What say you?
No. Oh, no, not at all. I mean, we've got a deep state that's obvious to anybody that's been paying attention, that has gone beyond what the mainstream media is feeding. And I'm not talking conspiracy theories. I mean, the basic facts. Whether you want to look at people that are above the law like Hillary, that could delete subpoenaed emails, that could delete and bleach bit and take a hammer to a device they're supposed to turn in there, and there's no prosecution. You got a Hunter Biden who Attorney General Barr says they're not going to look at, and yet he said, well, maybe it's I got this job because of my dad.
Yeah.
In other words, I'm selling influence. And you've got the dad, the president-elect, saying, well, I'm going to withhold $1.5 billion in foreign aid unless they fire a prosecutor who's investigating my son.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave this country in 6 hours. Give me, and the guy said it. I mean,
none of this is not conspiracy stuff. I mean, there's phone recordings.
There's recordings.
Stuff. Yeah.
There's recordings, and so we have people that there were 65 votes to repeal and replace Obamacare,
in the
which
Senate
was just prior to President Trump.
Oh, I see.
Being
okay.
elected.
Yeah.
So there were 65 votes. And he said, yes, 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 repeal it, repeal it, repeal it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they finally had the power to do it,
They didn't.
they didn't.
Yeah.
And it was a handful
I had lots
of
of
Republicans.
questions. I had a lot of questions
And
about
that,
that one.
that lets you know that there's a deep state. There are people that, are unelected that are pushing the agenda. And there are people that are elected that are also on board with that power. It's the power thing, and on both parties.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a $27 trillion national debt. And I think that some economists were saying, by the time you get about 25 trillion, it's unsustainable. We're at 27.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
And you have people like Cloward and Piven that have written about pushing this economy into a hole, to breaking this country, and to do it economically. You increase entitlements. You promise things to people. They're talking about $200 trillion in unfunded mandated spending.
Yeah.
How are they going to? I mean, they're promising the world to people, and they're all buying into it. But free, there's nothing free, like student loans.
Yep.
Yeah, just that one alone. There's a lot that they're promising. As they do that, they shut down the economy.
Yeah, student loan debt just recently overtook auto loan debt or auto loan or credit card debt.
I think it was
it
credit
is
card.
now officially the number 2 personal debt behind mortgage now. And I don't want to get too far into this, but the one thing that you have to think about too is 27 trillion in debt. Anytime I have a banking background, anytime there's debt, there's interest. Where's the interest going? So I don't want to get down that rabbit hole right now.
Pay the interest. And
Exactly.
especially if you shut the economy down and shut businesses down that you normally would tax.
Yeah.
And individuals aren't earning this year because, again, their jobs are closing up.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. There's a restaurant in my home. So a little bit of background on me, Denzel. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan right now. I'm originally from Gaylord, which is about 3 hours north. It's a little small town just about an hour south of the Mackinac Bridge. And there's a restaurant there called the Iron Pig, and I like to shout them out anytime I get a chance to, because they're very good. And they have Gretchen Whitmer has been one of the absolute worst human beings when it came to all of these lockdowns. And she recently took down indoor dining again at the beginning of December. It won't let up until mid-January now. And there have been a handful of restaurants that have just basically flipped her the bird and said, you know what, we're staying open.
Yep.
And because she's running everything through the health department, they're going in and pulling liquor licenses for these businesses. So so they have a big legal mess on their hands, but I like to give them a shout out anytime I get on the show. If you're in the Gaylord area, you want to go out to eat and you're not afraid of the Rona, go go check them out. They're good people. So yeah, we've seen a crazy wave of shutdowns lately, and but as your background with the law enforcement, can you imagine being on the street right now, having to go into these businesses per your police chief or per your mayor and saying, "Hey, you guys got to close your door"? Like, how would you feel as a cop doing that right now?
Especially because it's hurting friends. Because I love eating in restaurants. I love to cook and I love to eat.
Yeah.
And I just, and my grandmother owned the restaurant, so I just, there's sometimes there are just unconstitutional laws, or there are things that just go against good sense, and I would have a lot of trouble enforcing a lot of the things, whether it's this or the Second Amendment or a lot of things that I think that we're going to see some pushback at some point, because it doesn't make sense when it's not for thee but for me. And you see the governor can travel, the governor can eat.
Gavin Newsom's a big scapegoat out there in California. Right after he dropped down the hammer on the restaurants out there, you saw his ass in a restaurant eating with his family and like 10 other people. So yeah.
And so hypocrisy, unfortunately, there's not a lot of shame anymore. They, they're not happy they got caught, but they continue to be hypocrites. And I don't know. I can't. I'm glad I don't have to deal with that right now.
Yeah.
Because I would have a lot of trouble doing that.
How do you feel about
You know,
some of the?
I've
I don't know exactly a location that I'm thinking of specifically, but I've heard a couple different sheriff's offices have actually made public statements saying that they won't enforce some of these laws. How would you feel if you were a deputy in that county? If your sheriff said, "Hey, we're not going to enforce these laws," would you feel apprehensive about that because
no,
your job is?
I back my sheriff. They are the final say so in any county. They're the highest law enforcement official in any county. And again, our founding fathers did that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, you have to look at the law and the Constitution, which again, most people don't. You know that they don't even teach constitutional law now at Harvard?
Wow.
What?
Yeah, you look at their curriculum and they're looking at other countries and we even had Supreme Court justices that mentioned that.
Yeah.
Looking at other laws outside of our Constitution. And again, the best way to break it is to, ignore the rule of law and not enforce, do what they were sworn to do. When you take an oath as a military, even in the military, you take to support and defend the Constitution. And as a deputy, I'd look at my chief or the sheriff. I go, thanks.
Yeah.
So we're joined here by Dr. Denzel. Is it Jines? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah.
Jines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jones with an I.
Okay, sounds good. We're joined here by Dr. Denzel Jines out of St. Louis, Missouri. You're on the Illinois side though, right?
No, I live in the Missouri side now. I did live on the Illinois side.
Okay.
Worked on the Illinois side of the police departments, and also on this side of the river. But I'm over on the Missouri side. I left the People's Republic several years ago. They doubled the income tax.
Did they really?
Oh, wow.
And then, but 2 years later, they realized we're not getting the tax revenue we need. They did it again.
Oh my God.
And then on top of that, we had property taxes that were just
Out the yin yang.
incredible. Oh yeah. I mean, you pay $1,000 a month if you have a mortgage or all lump sum, but my property taxes were about $12,000.
Oh yeah.
For the privilege of living, just the property tax.
Yeah.
On a house, a year. And you just, it was also at that time that I found out about a particular congressperson, I won't say who, that their property taxes on a bigger house with a bigger swimming pool, with an outdoor theater, with an outside kitchen, with an outside living space, was just in the hundreds.
How
of
bizarre.
dollars.
How bizarre.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Look at
So
look
I
at these
left.
oligarchs.
I left it.
All right. Yeah, I don't
Right,
blame
they-
you one bit. We Illinois, I mean, I feel like most of Illinois is pretty red, except for that 50 square miles on the north side, right next to the lake.
Right.
Yeah,
Pretty
so,
much.
Yeah, Michigan's weird because the east side of the state obviously is the reason why Michigan is blue. Most of the time it's very red, and the west side of the state, Grand Rapids, Holland, even like Kalamazoo, St. Joe's, like a lot of the larger cities on the west side of the state are pretty conservative. But anyway, again, joined by Dr. Denzel Jines, one of the most interesting backgrounds I've ever heard of. I want to get into this real quick before we let you go. You, after having this incredible life and, doing just about everything that you can do, a pilot, a police officer, a doctor, a dentist, a published author. I've got your book right here. While I Can, Before I'm Gone, Living with ALS, My Story. You received a nasty little diagnosis a few years back. Tell me a little bit about what that was like.
Well, I was ALS usually is diagnosed through exclusion. You don't have X, Y, Z. We got to go back to the other end of the alphabet. You got ALS. And motor neuron disease is one of those things that it affects I think about 5,000-6,000 people a year in the United States. it's not very many people, and so it's pretty much the understanding of it is similar to what it was when Lou Gehrig actually was diagnosed in I think late 30s, and it slowly steals away your ability to communicate, to speak, to move. Any motor neuron, any voluntary muscle movement that you would have, it takes that away. It eventually takes away your ability to breathe. And average lifespan is about 2 to 5 years with the diagnosis. And yet there are people like Stephen Hawking that lived 50 years with it, even though he was paralyzed within just the first couple of years. Steve Gleason of Team Gleason, a former NFL football player, they won a Super Bowl with the Saints, New Orleans Saints. And he was diagnosed 10 years ago.
Yeah, I
and
remember
now
that.
He is in a wheelchair, and he uses a computer to communicate. And like Stephen Hawking did, he's got voluntary movement of his eye that's remained. But for many, I go into the clinics and I would see folks coming in and they walked in one year, the next year they were in a wheelchair, and the next year after that they were gone. And so it's scary, when you get that diagnosis. But again, we're not promised anything.
Right.
We're not promised tomorrow. I had a son that was in the Marines, was in the who's who in high school, honor student, played guitar, even played professionally. He was a heck of a guitar player, and at the age of 22, he's disabled from his tour in Iraq. He comes back here and ended up starting to use drugs, which he had never done prior to that, and he ended up overdosing and dying. And he's one of the victims of the opioid war, and he was 22. So you don't have, there's no promise of a long life, so you just have to live a life that outlives you now, today, and so that's how I just approached that diagnosis. I went, oh, okay.
I want to before you continue, I want to read. This is perfect timing. The first page of the introduction of your book is, I read this one page and I took a picture of it and sent it to like 4 of my buddies. I was like, you have to read this. The famous quote, "You only live once," has always seemed only particularly true to me. My truth as lived daily is, we all die once, unless one is a coward or a liar, as they die 1,000 little deaths daily. The sad truth for many is that they never fully live. Wow. That's some powerful stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole reason why I just keep doing stuff, because life is short, and so you might as well enjoy it, and try. Even happiness isn't promised. We have the right to pursue it. And so, I try to find things that make me happy, whether it's chasing my wife or, getting on the motorcycles and running all over the country, which we did. Your uncle and I went to Winslow, Arizona in one day.
Wow.
From up here. And,
awesome.
1,000 miles down, 1,000 miles back.
Well, nice little trip.
Yeah, they call those iron butt rides, and
yeah,
they're a blast.
I was about to say, can you still feel your butt after that one? Like,
oh yeah. I had the Harley, the geezer glides. I had gold wings, and now I'm on I got rid of the Harley trike, and I got one of these Can-Ams, which is like a Sea-Doo with wheels, or a snowmobile with wheels.
Nice.
And I had it actually faster, handles great, no complaints with the performance of one of those. I have a complaint with the dealer network, but that's a whole other thing. They don't have any spare parts or access to accessories like Harley does. I mean, they did the dealerships went through the Disney model of corporate life, and so when you walk into a Harley, when I walked into a Harley dealer back in the early 70s, and they'd look at you like, what in the are you doing here? You don't belong here. You don't have any tattoos. Get out.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, welcome aboard. And look, we have merchandise and shirts and hats and bikes too, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, and the other guys need to learn that too, because it would help.
Mm-hmm.
So you got any other questions?
Yeah, last one. So, so Reguladores is the name of the group that you're part of with my uncle. How did you get connected to those guys?
Okay, they started down in Texas in 2001, and it grew across the country. And the second chapter outside of Texas was in Southern Illinois.
Okay.
And Brian Bennerton was chief of police up in Williamson, Illinois, and was a big motorcycle enthusiast. And he started the chapter, founded the chapter up here in Southern Illinois. I was looking at writing. I rode with my partner Joe, another friend at the Marine Corps, Bob Weber, and Kevin, my police partner, Kevin White, and we would ride all over the country as a group. And I had seen motorcycle clubs and part of the motorcycle life. My cousin was a vice president of Banditos down in Fort Worth. And so I knew about the clubs, that side of it. And I'd seen some police clubs, but they were pretty much not really riding clubs. They didn't really get out and travel. And I saw a 3-piece patch one day, a picture of Reguladores patch. And I go, well, that looks like a traditional, like an outlaw, almost it's a 3-piece patch. But it says LE on there. So I contacted him. Mm-hmm. I just said, I hunted him down. I said, who are you? And after a long talk with Brian Bennerton, I realized, okay, I want to ride with you guys.
That's awesome.
And so I, made the introductions, rode over with them. And then I, got a hold of Bob and Kevin, said, hey guys, we got to join this. And that's what we did.
That's awesome.
Yeah. We've had since then, we go all over the country, down to Florida, Texas, New Orleans, Louisiana, Arizona. I mean, everywhere where we, trying to actually start up a chapter, on one end of the state in Missouri and another one down in New Mexico, with one of the sheriffs down there. And it's just a blast. I love to ride, and share experiences with former military people. I was a tooth fairy. And, and I thought when I was in the Navy, the only reason they have an aircraft carrier is to bring the patients flying in here to me.
Oh,
it's awesome. And I've got friends, but I have actually personal friends that are on the SEAL teams and Delta Force. And I got, when I first got on Facebook, one of my friends that was one of the combat swimmer instructors, Halo instructors, former Green Beret. And he says, where's your trident? Because I've got these friends that are SEALs. And I said, well, I recommend like 4 other out of 5 dentists. I recommend trident gum. They laugh, but I got involved with that community, again, by happenstance. I was a competitive shooter, was a martial artist, and you just meet these guys. And some of them were friendly. They what's the staff officer doing out here on the weapons range? And then I was able to, show them why I was there. And they said, you can come back anytime you want. And, and that those friendships evolve, and that's the greatest part about the military is that
there's such
everybody's
a camaraderie.
there.
There's
all
such a
have
brotherhood.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a blast. Now this is a shameless self-promotion.
Absolutely.
But there's a second book out.
Ooh, tell me about it.
It's called Appointment with Karma.
Okay.
And it's based on a lot of true stories.
Yeah, we'll put that Amazon link in the description of this.
Oh yeah, Appointment with Karma
absolutely
is my first novel.
Okay.
And it's about what, the Warriors ethos. If you mess with me, I'm going to leave it to karma.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hurt my family, I am your karma.
I love
And
it.
that's what it's about. It's about a surgeon here in St. Louis who's a police officer who becomes the victim, not him, but someone he knows becomes a victim of a pretty bad crime. And just through some coincidences and luck and some really hard detective work, he's able to identify the perpetrator. And then he has to wrestle with his conscience. What do you do with the knowledge? And so that's what it's about.
That's awesome. That sounds similar. Not very similar, but there's some similarities between one of my favorite movies, the Boondock Saints. I don't know if you've seen that. That's a little bit older, but
yeah.
That's one of my favorite movies.
Familiar
of
that
all time.
one. I was thinking this is more like Dexter meets Death Wish.
Okay, I like it. That's awesime.
Yeah,
that's a good combination right there.
So
it was fun to fight, and a lot of my friends are all going, oh, okay, because I use the same names, first names, but I changed all the last names.
Oh,
so a lot of my friends are in it.
So there's some Easter eggs that your friends can go in and that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah.
So last couple questions for you before we get off the phone with you. We're here with Dr. Denzel Jines, published author, did about 9 other things, pretty cool. Link in the description to his newest book called An Appointment with Karma. So you were back in 2015. I'm old enough to remember that there was a little bit of a riot that went on in one of the neighborhoods down in St. Louis. Were you boots on the ground for Ferguson back in 2015, or were you kind of at a...
Well, it was 2014 when the shooting occurred.
Yes, that's what I meant.
And our department was lending help. I did not have to go boots on the ground because I was already diagnosed with ALS.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, I was there I did some weapons checks for some guys, did some other stuff because I was one of the firearms instructors for our academy and for our departments. And that goes all the way back to doing that stuff back in the early 80s with intelligence unit here in St. Louis. But yeah, we saw the birth of Black Lives Matter then through an open lie that was told about a police officer that was doing his job, that was seriously injured when he was, it's one of those things that there's a narrative that's out there. Police are bad. Police are racists. And it's just not true. And the numbers, just the sheer numbers, should be enough to show people that, anybody that's thinking that, wait a minute, the majority of cops are really, they're doing a hard job, and they do it with pride and with care. There are examples of people that get hurt, but when you look at 1.5 billion interactions in a given time frame, a couple of years, 1.5 billion interactions of police officers to minorities. That's traffic stops, well checks, you name it, just interactions. And you get 95 unarmed minority men and women that are killed by police officers. And you got to remember about 100 officers that are killed many times are killed by unarmed people.
Yeah.
So let's, not all 95 people that were killed by police in that given time period were innocent. Not all 95 people, it's how do you, it's one of those things where you have to be there and look at and read these reports. And we have people, in 95 people out of 1.5 billion. But at the same time, our minority communities, like in the Black community, we have 44,000 people killed in that same time period by other minorities. Black on black crime. And we can't talk about that. And we have to be able to differentiate between criminal behavior and wanton racism, open racism, which it's just, I've never met a cop that says, "Boy, I sure hope I get to go out and hurt somebody today."
Right. That's
Or
not
I
why you
get to
sign
go
up
out
for
and
that job.
That's no.
No.
If we see somebody like that, if we even hear about that, those are the people we flag. Get them out of this profession.
For sure.
Mhm.
We don't want people
Yeah.
like that. Open racists. I mean,
It's
I know
not
the
it's not a
stereotype of the
profession.
guys.
That's not a
Yeah, the
profession
guys
that you
down
want
in
to
the
be in.
South back in the '60s, in that kind of stuff that occurred. But it's not. It's today's world. No,
Mhm.
we stamp that out. I mean, racism was on its way out in the early 2000s up to about 2008, and then all of a sudden it made a resurgence,
Right.
or at least the complaint of it did.
Do you think it had
And
anything to do with our presidential administration from 2008 to 2016?
Yeah, I do believe it. I think that it was ramped up, that there was a narrative created that all police or those police acted stupidly, and in little things like those comments that were made when that was not actually the facts.
Mhm.
And that when the president made that and they had the beer summit because a professor was arrested in his own home. Well, if you look at the facts of that, the police are called to investigate a break-in. You find a guy there. Now, he can say, "I own the house." I mean, if I was a burglar and the police showed up, "Hey, what are you doing in my house?" I might, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's what happened. And because he then refused to identify himself, and because he wouldn't cooperate with the police, he got arrested.
Mhm.
Now, it doesn't mean that, the police were just trying to do their job and investigate why, hey, your burglar alarm went off.
Mhm.
Who are
Mhm.
you?
Yeah.
They didn't have any clue who was there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
when they
that
show up
kind
to
of
an
stuff that-
address, it doesn't say what race owns the property.
Right. If
Like,
everybody would step back and be courteous
yeah.
and respectful of each other,
Yeah,
many times this stuff wouldn't happen.
for sure.
But
Because the narrative out there has been so beat down that all of these police officers are racist, that anytime you have something that could be a simple mistake or a simple misunderstanding gets blown way out of context, and sometimes, unfortunately, in police circumstances, in interactions with people, misunderstandings can turn violent pretty quick, especially if one of the parties isn't cooperative.
Right. We allude earlier to the rights and responsibilities, and there's many people unfortunately think they're lawyers, and you don't adjudicate a case in the street.
Mhm.
If you've got a problem, if they've done a procedural error and the police have made a mistake,
Yes.
you'll get your day in court,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
but you can't fight them in the street.
Right, and here's the
And,
thing, and if you get a good lawyer and there is a cop that is in the wrong, you'll probably get a pretty decent paycheck. Like,
Yeah.
like if there's a genuine circumstance where a police officer, and by the way, all of these administrations and justice departments and stuff, they're so concerned about the negative blowback they could get from a situation like this, they'll probably just hey, here you go, here's a big fat check, let's
And even
Yeah.
and even
de-escalate
if
the
you aren't
situation.
wrong, and even if the police aren't wrong, you might get a big check
Right.
anyway,
Yeah, for sure. So
or your family, and that's what's happened in many cases.
Yeah.
And it's a shame
yeah.
because racism. I'm a minority. I mean, I'm Asian.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm used to. When I grew up, there was a form of racism against especially Japanese because
For
of
sure.
the end of World War II.
Back in the 40s.
We had many people that lived through the horrors of that.
Yeah.
And so I can understand from here. I can understand
Mhm.
that. Maybe when I was younger, I had a chip on my shoulder. I'll show you. And I'll go to school. I'll be more successful. And I'll show you. But yeah, maybe that was a motivator. But I can understand being a minority, and of course, I'll have people say, "Well, you're not dark enough." I've had people say that.
Oh,
And I
man.
go, "Really?"
Oh.
Okay.
Should I
So,
go
and
tan more or
so we all
something?
have-
Like, what do you want me
we
to
all
do?
We all have our chip.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. If I used to go to Texas when I was a kid to hang out with my family members, I'd spend a month down there. I'd look pretty Hispanic after spending a month in the Texas heat in the summertime. Like,
Yeah.
I was probably darker than you were at that point.
It's And I'll tell you what, the heat. Yeah, we were there in August, and I thought I had to check the address several times. We haven't died and gone to hell, have we? It's hot here.
Yeah, that's Texas for you.
Oh my goodness, I'd never. I mean, that was hot, and I just don't. It was this condition too. I don't regulate my temperature very well.
Yeah.
And so it really got to me. It used to be hot, cold. Oh, I'll stay outside all day.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I want to be in the air conditioner. I want with the heater, the furnace on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of the unfortunate things about getting older or with having something like this.
Yeah.
And maintain your health. All I can tell you guys, maintain your health.
Absolutely.
If you don't diet and you don't exercise, I mean, what's going to happen is your health, you'll hit a magic number.
Yeah.
It can be 25 for some people. For other people, it's 40. But your metabolism slows, your ability to heal slows, your immune system slows down. And you want to make up that difference, and it's diet and exercise. And that's been a clear-cut winner for me. My physicians will say that, too, is that, the training I did for 45 years, I ran 3 times a week. I lifted weights 4 days a week. And I was organic most of the time. I had unfortunately got a gene mutation, and it's exposure to certain things, radiation, some other things that create that potential, and that's what happened with me. And so I've got this, but it's doing the other stuff that has reduced the oxidative stress and the other things that age me.
Yeah.
And so I've been real lucky. I mean, this is, I'm still walking, and it's 5 years past the diagnosis of ALS.
Wow.
And
that's impressive.
More
That is
than
very
20
impressive.
years since the first symptoms, and I'm still walking.
Wow.
So, you really do. It's a machine, and you own it. And if we're not handed an owner's manual,
Right.
but if there are outlets or resources that you can look up online that can show you how to reduce those levels of stress, how you can reverse atherosclerotic plaque in the heart. We've known that for over 20 years now. Dean Ornish published work in the not New England Journal, but the Journal of American Medical Association, JAMA, back in '97, showing that you could actually reverse the plaque in the heart that plugs things up. That it's like the scale inside a pipe, and so the lumen, the actual blood vessels get thinner and thinner, and blood can't get through, and then you end up with either a clot or an ischemic event in the heart, and then damage, a heart attack. Well, back then, they were already showing you can reverse these plaques. You can actually, reverse the aging process by a lot with just a strict diet. But people don't want to hear about diet. Same with diabetes. I've got diabetes patients that were on insulin. They were on oral meds and are off their meds completely just by changing their diet.
No kidding.
They're no longer diabetic.
That's
or
wild.
hypertensive.
Like, are you talking like type 1 diabetic or type 2?
No. Type 1 diabetes is a different story. That's an autoimmune, but type 2 diabetes, adult onset. Okay. Same with hypertension. The most effective blood pressure medicine works about 38% of the time. So most of the time, if you come into you go to your primary care doctor and they're overworked and they're seeing all the patients, you come in and he's got a minute and you go, oh, your blood pressure's up. Here's a beta blocker or an alpha blocker or a calcium channel blocker or an ACE inhibitor or a water pill. But one way or another, we're going to give you this pill that's going to lower your blood pressure. Now, it will slow your metabolism down. Most of them do. They'll slow your metabolism down. You'll gain a little weight. Well, if you gain a little weight, your blood pressure is going to go up. I get another pill.
And then give you more susceptible to heart disease and all sorts of those.
And the more we get you on more and more pills, and all those pills do is treat the symptoms. They don't get at the cause.
Do you think that's intentional?
There's a thing. I'd hate to think it's intentional. I think it's the way the allopathic model of medicine is geared towards pharmacologic intervention.
Yeah.
In other words, we answer to big pharma. We give here's your pill.
Yeah.
And getting back to that, okay, the DASH diet works 88% of the time to reduce blood pressure to normal. within 2 weeks. And it's a diet. And when Stiles wrote that diet, that's actually a compromise on other work that showed that you could lower it even further with even a stricter diet.
Yeah.
And then that in turn reverses cholesterol numbers and your chances of diabetes. And it's pretty amazing. But, about half of the dollars that are spent on healthcare right now, or closer to 70% of the dollars that are spent on healthcare are spent on lifestyle preventable illness.
Interesting.
Okay.
So you're saying
And
if we
about
cut
half-
back on the McDonald's as a society, we would probably cut our
Uh-huh.
healthcare costs in half.
Yeah, we don't have a health care crisis. We have a health crisis in America. We have 2/3 of the patient population is now overweight.
Mhm.
Over a third is obese.
Yeah. You want to
And
get
you
the,
can-
th-
we
this
could-
is I got something to tell you. This is a little bit more personal, but my wife just got diagnosed with celiac, and she's had symptoms for years and has never had a positive test for that before. So we're now like I'm like the metabolism that everybody hates for. I could eat 3 cheeseburgers and lose 5 pounds tomorrow. Like that, it's slowly starting to catch up with me, but I've always had that. But now more so than ever, I'm starting to actually listen to what my body is telling me and pay attention to what I'm putting in. And at least when I'm home, not putting any gluten in my body. And that alone, I just feel like I have so much more energy. Do you think that there might be a lack of education out there about all this stuff, or do you think there might?
There's a tremendous lack of education when it comes to nutrition in the medical community.
Yeah.
They give it lip service. Tufts, I think, has the longest or the largest amount of nutritional education in medical school.
Yeah.
And it's like maybe 7 or 8 hours.
Wow.
That's it. Out of a 2,700 hours
Yeah.
of education to get an MD, and you get a handful of hours that are spent on nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the dietitians, the nutritionists, their information is coming from the food producers and big pharma.
Yeah.
And
That's why I think the food pyramid is, excuse my French, but the food pyramid's a crock of shit.
it is.
Yeah.
It truly is. It's because it's guided by, again, the government body that's funding the food growers or the food producers, in this case, dairy and poultry and pork and beef. And that's a we could get into that for hours on its effect on health as far as diet goes. And like I said, 70% of our healthcare dollars are spent on lifestyle preventable illnesses. And more than half of the medicines that are being prescribed today are being prescribed to get rid of the side effects of the other half of the medicine that people take.
Interesting.
Wow.
And you don't want to
vicious
get
cycle.
to the point where you're taking all these meds. It's your diet and your exercise. And I could give you a couple sources that are pretty good at getting a basic education on what's going on.
Okay.
And that is the documentary, What the Health,
Okay.
the documentary Forks Over Knives, and a super book by a guy named Michael Greger, who was head of medical research at, oh gosh, I don't want to, it might have been Cornell, it could have been Columbia, I can't remember exactly. But he's a physician, and he wrote the book, How Not to Die. And those are 3 great sources of basic information on health and nutrition, and the tie-in between your diet and your overall health and your risks of developing heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at those and you want to minimize your risks, besides doing the exercise, because a lot of guys are great at exercising, well, maybe not, that's another one. Maybe, I shouldn't say a lot of guys, because I know a lot of guys that are overweight. But if you're doing the exercise and you also then combine it with the proper diet, you're going to live your best life. I mean, you take some bodybuilders that are tremendously strong. They have diets that aren't exactly super healthy, and they live to life expectancy. You take other people that have a fairly good diet, a healthy diet, mostly plant-based, but they don't exercise at all, and they live to about life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you put it all together that you see these guys that are in their 80s and their 90s, and they're still functioning at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not seeing them age like everybody else, just because 9 out of 10 people get hypertension, or 2/3 of the population gets to be overweight. That's not normal. It's usual. It's like cavities and gum disease. 9 out of 10 people get cavities and gum disease, and yet it's the most preventable condition there is. It's just usual that so many people get. It's not normal.
Yeah.
Normal's being healthy. And, the sicker the American public gets in America, the sicker the public gets, the wider the lab parameters have gotten for measuring cholesterol. It used to be your cholesterol was in a danger zone. We worried about it when it was over 150. Now it's 200. It's things like that.
Wow.
So they're moving the goalposts.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you want to be at the low end of most of those. You want to be, your cholesterol, you don't want it to be at that high end of what's considered normal. You want it in the middle.
Yeah.
You want your, your triglycerides the same way, and in your blood sugar. And you don't want to get, and it doesn't have to get high if you're doing your part, which is not eating the things that are, that are stressing, that create oxidative stress, that raise your CRP, that do the things that wear your body out before it's ready. I always ask the patients, where are you going to live when you wear this thing out, by the way? And they'd look at me. And unfortunately, though, we have a lot of folks that also, no matter what you tell them, it's like some people can't take a telling. You could, I had a sign in my office that said, well, your prognosis is going to depend on which one of us is going to be the doctor today.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, Dr. Denzel, but I really love Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I ain't going to change that.
So do I. I loved it, too. I mean, it's one of those things that, it's one of those things that if you really, really do the strict diet, you can lower those numbers to normal. Yeah. And if you're eating 21 meals a week and you're healthy, you don't have hypertension, you don't have diabetes, and you're not overweight, that one meal a week that you splurge and do something and eat something like that, it's not really going to hurt you.
Right. Yeah.
But you can't do it in the so-called parentheses of moderation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm only smoking 2 cigarettes a day. You know what I mean? Or I'm only,
everything in moderation except for moderation.
Yeah. It's like, how do you...
Yeah.
I heard one guy say that one time that what if I switch from this to that? The other guy, and the doctor looked at him and said, well, that's your choice.
What if I go from Marlboro Reds to Marlboro Lights? Light, it'll be better, right?
Right. It's like, again, it's that choice. You want to shoot yourself or hang yourself.
Right. All right, doctor. We can't thank you enough. One last question for you before we get off here. What's next? What's on the horizon for Doctor? You seem like you're very forward thinking and always looking forward to something.
We're planning on going to Winter Nationals and celebrating Christmas and New Year's.
Awesome.
Doing the Winter Nationals with the regular Doris down in Bandera, Texas.
Cool.
The book Appointment with Karma ends at one point, and the new book starts before that ending. You're going to fill in some more details at the end.
I love it.
And it keeps going. Yeah. Basically, the three friends, it's kind of funny, but what is that old story about how do you keep a secret if you're 3 people? Well, you shoot 2 of them. I'm not going to give the secret away, but it's, there's another one on the way. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dr. Denzel, can't thank you enough. Joe, you got anything else?
No, I think that'll do for me.
Okay.
I'm excited to read your book.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you a couple questions about COVID, but ironically, my episode coming out tomorrow, I interviewed a doctor in St. Louis, ironically, with an episode that is going to be coming out tomorrow, Dr. Justin Kelly,
awesome.
And the whole thing is about his take on COVID-19, and we went through some CDC statistics and all that good stuff. And
I think I included a short chapter on COVID in the first book.
You did, and your perspective on that was incredibly interesting. So maybe in the next couple months, hey, Biden gets in office, maybe all this COVID stuff goes away. We're not quite sure yet. Maybe it gets worse. I don't know, but yeah, maybe we'll have you on in a couple months, and we could talk a little bit more about all the craziness going on in the world. So.
Sure, love to.
Dr. Denzel, can't thank you enough, and have a great night.
You too, and thank you very much, guys.
All right, thanks.
Have a good one. Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Merry
Christmas.
Christmas.
All right. Yep, go ahead and hang that up. All right, if you're still tuning in to us, thank you so much. Joe, I think this was a smashing success, the first the live episode. Are we still live? You haven't
Yeah,
shut
we're
it off
still
yet?
live.
Okay, cool. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything to wrap it up?
It's crazy what Dr. Denzel has done, and yeah, I think what I said earlier. Just I can't wait to read his book, and then the second one,
Yeah.
because that man has lived quite a life. And you were saying that you sent that original quote on the first page to a few people, and I was of the lucky few. And even the second time hearing it, that gives me chills, hearing the way that someone can use such powerful words that are simple but just kind of hit you to your core.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maybe we'll get him back on as a repeat guest. There's so many guys that I have on here. It's just man, we need to get you back on, because I feel like and again, maybe someday I'll get somebody on here that I don't agree with on a lot of things, because I had to like rein in going down rabbit holes and stuff like that. So maybe at some point we come back to this. But for those of you who didn't get a chance to catch this whole thing, go ahead and listen to it on YouTube. Facebook Live. I don't really know how this works. This is our first time going live. I think it was a smashing success. This episode will launch Monday, December 28th on all podcast networks. We want to invite you to like, share, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate that. And that's all I got for tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great night.
Have a
Merry
great night,
Christmas.
guys.